My name is Alia. I am a mother who believed, foolishly, that blood was the one bond no betrayal could cut. I was wrong. 2 hours ago, my younger son Noah told us, "I'll go to the police. Come with me." His voice trembled just enough to sound sincere, and his hands on the steering wheel looked steady. But the road he chose was not the one that led to the station. It was a road I had never seen before. Empty fields, dark pines, a ribbon of asphalt twisting upward into nowhere. Before I go on, please subscribe and tell me, what would you do if the child you raised became the one planning your death? Hassan, my husband, sat in the passenger seat, his jaw tight, one hand clutching the door handle. He thought we were on our way to end a nightmare. He still believed Noah's sudden offer to confess, to make things right, after all these years. But I saw something else, the way Noah's eyes flicked too often to the rearview mirror, the way he pressed the accelerator harder on every curve. I pressed my coat pocket where my phone was hidden. One push of my thumb had already started the recorder. The little red wave pulsed silently in the dark. If tonight was to be our last, then the truth would not die with us. Noah hummed softly, a habit from his childhood, but the tune was wrong, off-key, dissonant. I stared out the window as the lights of town faded, and only the black outline of trees remained. A memory forced itself through the silence. 6 years ago, another night, another betrayal. Caleb, my firstborn, standing in the doorway with handcuffs biting his wrists. Elise, his girlfriend, crying too perfectly. Noah, pale but silent in the corner. The police searching his room and finding evidence that should never have been there. 6 years. That was how long we had pretended Caleb's fall was his own fault, not something planted by another's hand. I remember Hassan whispering then, Noah would never. He had refused to see the obvious. He refused because to see it was to admit we had raised a snake under our roof. Now the snake was driving us into darkness. The car climbed higher. No street lamps, no signs, just gravel shoulders and the smell of damp earth. Hassan finally broke the silence, his voice sharp. "This isn't the way to the station." Noah's reply was calm, almost gentle. "It's a shortcut, Dad. Don't worry." But I worried. Every nerve in my body screamed that we weren't heading toward justice, we were being delivered to our own grave. I shifted slightly, pressing the side button on my phone again, this time activating the emergency signal. My location would be sent, though I didn't know if there was enough signal here. Still, it was all I could do. In the rearview mirror, Noah caught my eyes. He smiled, and in that smile I saw not my son, but the same boy who once stood too calm while his brother's life collapsed. Then he said the words that froze my blood. "You've always wanted the truth, Mom. Tonight you'll have it." The curve of the road kept pulling us higher into the hills, but my mind was not in that car. It was 6 years in the past, in another night filled with sirens and disbelief. Sometimes memory arrives not as a gentle whisper, but as a flood that drowns the present. That's what happened to me. One glance at Noah's eyes in the rearview mirror was enough to throw me back into the worst night of my life. Back then, I still believed in the innocence of my younger son. Caleb was the older one, the pillar of our family. He was steady, patient, the kind of young man who offered his arm to me when we crossed the street, who stayed late in the evenings to help his father fix broken cabinets. Elise was his girlfriend, a pretty girl with the kind of smile that mothers dream of seeing in their daughter-in-law. I thought she was perfect for him, kind, respectful, with eyes that glowed when she looked at Caleb. Or so I believed. It began with whispers. I remember passing by the kitchen one evening and hearing low voices, cut short when I entered. I thought nothing of it. Young people, I told myself, always have secrets. If only I had leaned against the door a few seconds longer. If only I had listened. Later I would learn the truth. That Elise's glowing eyes had shifted, not toward my firstborn, but toward his younger brother. Noah, reserved and quiet, had never been the center of attention. But he had something else, resentment. And Elise, with her beauty and her hunger for excitement, lit that resentment into a flame. They met in secret behind closed doors, in whispered phone calls I dismissed as friends from college. They thought they were clever, but fate always leaves fingerprints. The plan they devised was cruel in its simplicity. One evening, while Caleb was working late, Elise and Noah stole jewelry and cash that belonged to our family, pieces I had inherited from my own mother. They planted them in Caleb's room, in a shoebox at the back of his closet. Then an anonymous tip was called in to the police. I never heard the call myself, but the officers later said the voice sounded young, female, carefully disguised. I can still hear it in my nightmares. Elise pretending to be a neighbor, insisting Caleb was hiding stolen goods. The night the police arrived is etched into my soul. I opened the door to flashing blue lights. They brushed past me with a warrant, speaking in clipped, professional tones. Caleb came down the stairs in confusion, his face pale. "What's going on?" he asked. I tried to answer, but the words stuck in my throat. Minutes later, they found the box. My jewelry. My mother's brooch. The cash. I remember Caleb's face, shock, then anger, then a pain so raw it looked like betrayal carved into human form. "This isn't mine," he cried. His hands trembled as they snapped the handcuffs onto his wrists. Elise was there, too, covering her mouth with her hand, eyes wide in rehearsed horror. "I can't believe this," she whispered, as if the performance needed an audience. But when I looked at her too closely, I saw something flicker. Relief, not grief. And Noah? He stood at the top of the stairs, silent. His expression was unreadable, except to a mother who knew him too well. He didn't protest. He didn't cry for his brother. He only watched, lips pressed thin, eyes shining in the same strange calm I would later recognize in the rearview mirror tonight. Hassan, my husband, was furious with the police. He demanded explanations, insisted there had to be a mistake. But when we were finally alone, he sat at the edge of our bed and whispered, "Something isn't right." I clutched his hand and begged him to tell me what he meant. He shook his head. "I just don't believe Caleb would do this." But he looked toward Noah's room and stopped himself. "No, he wouldn't. He's our son." That was Hassan's curse, his heart too large to accept the darkness in his youngest. And mine was worse. I wanted to believe him. The weeks that followed crushed us. Caleb was charged, his reputation shredded, his future stolen. He swore his innocence until his throat went raw. But innocence without evidence is just noise. And the only evidence we had pointed at him. I still hear the clink of the cell door when they took him away. Elise visited him at first, bringing little gifts, crying on cue. But soon her visit stopped. A month later, I saw her walking down the street with Noah. Her hand slipped easily into his. The betrayal was complete. My son's girlfriend had become his brother's lover. Caleb sat behind bars while Elise and Noah began a new life together, their treachery hidden behind the mask of romance. Even then, Hassan refused to believe Noah's hand in it. "Coincidence," he muttered, though his eyes betrayed doubt. I, too, swallowed my suspicions, because to speak them aloud would mean admitting we had raised a son capable of sacrificing his brother for love and money. But denial doesn't erase truth. Truth waits. It waits 6 years sometimes until you're sitting in the back of a car, recording every word because the same son who framed his brother is now driving you and your husband toward a cliff. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, the past bleeding into the present. Caleb's shouts echoed in my head. "This isn't mine. I didn't do it." As the car rolled deeper into darkness, Noah glanced at me in the mirror, and I saw it again. That same gleam. Cold. Calculating. The eyes of a boy who had let his brother be destroyed without a word. 6 years buried, I thought. But not gone. Never gone. And now those same eyes told me that my husband and I were next. The night after Caleb was taken, I told myself that silence could protect us. If I never spoke the suspicion out loud, maybe it would lose its power. But silence is a liar. Silence only feeds the darkness. And 6 years later, silence almost killed me again. It began with a door that wasn't quite closed. I had gone upstairs to put away laundry when I heard voices coming from Noah's study. The door was ajar, just a finger's width, enough for sound to slip through. At first I thought it was another business call. He was always on the phone these days, talking too loudly, trying too hard. But then I heard my own name. "Your mother doesn't realize how much this place is worth," Vanessa said. Her voice was low, smooth, and sharp as a knife wrapped in silk. "The land alone could cover everything. If we get the house too, we can wipe it all clean." My heart thudded so loudly, I thought they would hear it in the hall. I stood frozen, clutching a stack of folded towels, afraid to breathe. Noah answered. His tone was calm, calculated, the same tone he used when lying as a child. "We'll get it. They're old, tired. It won't take much. Dad is practical. He'll listen to reason. Mom will follow." Vanessa laughed softly. "And if they don't?" Noah didn't hesitate. "Then we'll make them. One way or another, the money comes to us." The towels slid from my hands onto the floor. I covered my mouth, terrified they would hear. "Make them." The words rattled in my skull like stones. They weren't just greedy. They were desperate. And desperate people are dangerous. I stumbled back silently, retreating down the stairs before my legs gave out. That night I told Hassan everything. We sat in the kitchen, the dim light of the lamp turning his face into a mask of shadows. He listened without interrupting, his hand tightening around his teacup until it cracked. "Alia," he whispered. "Are you certain?" "I heard them," I said. My voice shook, but my certainty did not. "They're planning to take everything. They talked about forcing us." For a long moment he said nothing. Then he stood abruptly and paced the kitchen. "I knew he was hiding something," he muttered. "The expensive suits, the new car, the business trips. But I never thought." He stopped and pressed his palms against the counter. "I will speak to him. Tomorrow." "Speak to him?" My voice rose in panic. "Hassan, he's not a boy anymore. He's dangerous. You can't just." He turned to me, eyes burning with stubborn faith. "He's still our son. I have to give him a chance to explain." The next evening, Noah came over with Vanessa. They smiled too widely, carrying a basket of fruit as if generosity could disguise poison. Hassan invited him to the study. I hovered in the kitchen, my hands trembling as I washed the same plate again and again, straining to hear. Later, Hassan told me the words. He had looked Noah in the eye, his voice breaking with years of swallowed suspicion. "Noah," he said, "tell me the truth. How could you do this to your brother? How could you steal his life?" The silence that followed was unbearable. Hassan's question seemed to hang in the air like a blade, sharp and waiting to fall. I imagined Noah flinching, protesting, denying. But he didn't. Instead, Noah leaned back in his chair, utterly calm. He studied his father's face with a coldness that made my blood run cold, like a man observing a piece of furniture he might sell. Then, slowly, the corner of his mouth curved upward. "Dad," he said softly, "you don't understand how the world works. Caleb was in the way. And you," he paused as if savoring the moment. "You don't really want to know what I did. You only want to believe I can fix it." Hassan's hand trembled on the armrest. He forced his voice louder. "Answer me. Did you frame your own brother? Did you destroy him for her?" For the first time, Noah's mask cracked. His smile slipped and something darker bled through, resentment, defiance, triumph. He leaned forward, his eyes glittering like shards of glass. "If I told you the truth, you'd never forgive me. So let me make it right instead. Tomorrow, I'll go to the police. I'll confess everything. You'll see. It'll all be over." When Hassan told me what Noah had said, my blood ran cold. A confession after 6 years? It didn't sound like surrender. It sounded like a trap. That night, as we lay in bed, I turned toward my husband. "What if he means to harm us?" I whispered. Hassan sighed, pulling the blanket over us both. "Then we will trust God. And we will be careful." But sleep never came. I stared into the darkness, replaying every word, every glance, every memory. Tomorrow, Noah would drive us to the police station, or so he claimed. Tomorrow we would finally know if his promise was a rope to save us, or a rope to hang us. And as I closed my eyes, I remembered the soft laugh I had overheard behind that half-open door. Vanessa's laugh. It had not sounded like love. It had sounded like victory. The morning light was pale, but the fear in my chest was heavy as stone. When Noah's car pulled up, gleaming black against the faded sky, I told myself to breathe. I told myself to be calm. But calm was impossible. Hassan squeezed my hand once before climbing into the passenger seat. I slipped silently into the back. The first few minutes of the ride were quiet. The hum of the engine, the whisper of tires on asphalt. At first, we followed the route I knew so well, the road that led into town, the turn toward the police station. Then, without warning, Noah veered left instead of straight. "This isn't the way," Hassan said firmly, his voice steady but strained. "Shortcut," Noah replied. His hands tightened on the wheel. His tone was calm, but it was the kind of calm that hides a storm. I slid my hand into my bag and pressed the screen of my phone. The red wave began to pulse silently, capturing every second. Then, with another press, I triggered the emergency signal. I prayed there was enough reception out here in the rising hills. The road wound higher, narrowing between walls of dark pine. Vanessa's voice came through the car's speakerphone, smooth as honey. "Is everything smooth?" "Perfect," Noah said. That word again. Perfect. My heart pounded so loudly I was certain the recording would pick it up. Silence followed, but it was thick, waiting to break. And then it did. Noah slammed the steering wheel with the heel of his hand, startling us both. "Do you know what it's like," he snapped, "to live in your brother's shadow? Caleb the golden boy. Caleb the future. Caleb the one you trusted with everything." His voice rose, spilling anger that had been festering for years. "You never looked at me the way you looked at him. You never believed in me. I had to take what should have been mine." Elise understood that. She saw me, not him. She knew I deserved more. Hassan's voice was low, trembling with fury. You destroyed your brother. You lied to us. You betrayed everything this family stood for. Noah laughed bitterly. Family? Don't make me laugh. Family was the chain around my neck. And you, he shot a glance at me in the mirror, eyes burning. You chose him over me every single time. So I chose myself. I chose to survive. The car surged faster up the winding road. The trees blurred into a wall of green. I pressed myself against the seat, praying the recording was catching every venomous word. Survive, Hassan shouted. By framing your brother? By stealing his life? By plotting against your own parents? You don't get it. Noah roared. I am done begging. You two are in my way. Caleb was in my way. Anyone who stands between me and what I want, his knuckles whitened on the wheel, doesn't deserve to stand at all. Then, with a sudden jerk, Noah opened his own door. Time slowed. I saw him glance once at us, almost casually, as if discarding a burden. Then he pushed his body sideways and leapt into the road. The car wobbled, empty driver's seat flinging back, the steering wheel twisting wildly. Noah! Hassan shouted, reaching for the wheel, but it was too late. The car lurched violently toward the guardrail. Metal screamed as we smashed through. The world tilted. The horizon vanished. We were falling. The impact was bone-crushing. The air exploded with the sound of shattering glass, twisting steel, the deep groan of a dying machine. I was thrown against the seatbelt, lungs emptied, vision flashing white. For a moment, everything was silent except the drip of fuel and the ringing in my ears. Then I felt Hassan's hand groping for mine, finding it, squeezing weakly. His face was pale, blood trickling down his temple. His voice was barely a whisper. Alia, don't move. Don't cry out. Play dead. I froze, my breath shallow, my body limp. Somewhere above us, gravel crunched under footsteps. Noah's voice floated down, cruelly calm. It's over. They didn't make it. But he was wrong. Because even as I lay there, broken and bleeding, the little red wave on my phone kept pulsing, catching every word. I do not know how long I lay there, half conscious, half dreaming. The world was a blur of broken glass, the stink of gasoline, and the faint ticking of the cooling engine. Each heartbeat felt like an explosion against my ribs. Beside me, Hassan's breath rattled low, shallow but steady. His grip never left my hand. His words echoed in my ears, play dead. Above us, Noah's voice drifted through the trees, his footsteps uneven on the gravel. It's done, he muttered. They're gone. Both of them. It worked. Every syllable sliced deeper than the shards of glass in my skin. He believed he had killed us. He believed his lies would finally set him free. I dared not move, not even to wipe the blood crawling into my eyes. My phone was still pressed into my palm, its screen cracked but still glowing faintly, the red wave pulsing on. Recording. Documenting. Bearing witness. Minutes bled into hours. At least it felt that way. Then, faint in the distance, a sound. The whirring thump of helicopter blades. The wail of sirens winding through the valley. Hope. Noah's voice rose in alarm. Vanessa. They'll find us. Keep calm, remember the story. They lost control. It was an accident. We tried to help but... His voice trailed, rehearsing the lie even as salvation approached. The rescuers came in waves of noise. Shouting men, clattering ropes, the metallic clang of stretchers. I felt gloved hands on my neck, checking for a pulse. She's faint, a voice said above me. Almost gone, but alive. Alive. I wanted to cry out, to beg for help, but I kept still. I had to. If Noah suspected, he would find a way to silence us forever. Beside me, Hassan moaned softly. The rescuers mistook it for the last flicker of a dying man. Critical, one said. Move fast. We were lifted, strapped, carried. The world rocked and spun as they hauled us up the cliffside. I heard Vanessa's voice tremble, perfect, practiced. It was horrible. We were hiking in the car, it just went over. We couldn't save them. Her sobs were convincing enough to fool anyone who didn't know. But I knew, and so did the phone in my palm. The helicopter ride was a blur of sirens, light and pain. Doctors shouted orders over the roar of the blades. Pulse irregular. Massive trauma. Keep pressure. When we reached the hospital, chaos swallowed me whole. Bright lights. White coats. The sharp sting of antiseptic. I was rushed into an emergency ward, machines clicking and hissing around me. I heard Noah's voice again. Closer now, too close. Can we see them? He asked, his tone raw with false grief. Briefly, a nurse replied. I forced myself deeper into the act, limp, eyes closed, body slack. My breathing slowed to the faintest trickle. Then, warm breath on my ear. Noah's whisper, venom dripping with triumph. I told you, Mom. Some truths are better buried. Just like Caleb. My chest constricted with rage, but I gave no sign. The nurse standing nearby froze, her eyes wide. She had heard it. She had heard it. Noah lingered a moment longer, then his footsteps retreated. The door closed. Silence returned. And then the nurse leaned close, her voice so quiet it was almost a prayer. Ma'am, if you can hear me, move your finger. With everything I had left, I twitched once. Then again. Her gasp was sharp but controlled. Oh my God, she whispered. You're alive. For the first time since the car had left the road, I let myself believe. The truth might yet rise from the wreckage. The nurse's gasp still rang in my ears. Her eyes darted to the door, then back to me. She leaned down as if adjusting the monitor. Listen carefully, she whispered. If you're in danger from them, move your finger 3 times. I forced my body to obey, each twitch stabbing me with pain. 1, 2, 3. Her lips parted in shock. She covered it quickly with a cough. Then, in the same soft tone, she said, Don't worry. I'll protect you. That promise felt like a lifeline. Minutes later, she returned with an older man in a white coat and 2 figures in dark uniforms. Police. I had never been so grateful to see badges in my life. Ma'am, the doctor murmured, his voice steady. You are safe. The officers are here now. You can open your eyes. I let my lashes flutter open, slowly, weakly, as though it took all the strength in my body. The light above me was blinding, but when it cleared, I saw the relief on the nurse's face, the grim determination in the detective's. My son, I croaked, voice hoarse. He tried to kill us. It wasn't an accident. The officers exchanged a glance, but they didn't look surprised. One of them stepped closer, notebook in hand. I'm Detective Morgan. Can you tell me what happened? I told them everything in fragments, the words broken by pain but sharp with truth. The will, the pressure, the car, Noah's confession, Hassan's command to play dead. Every detail spilled out until my chest burned with exhaustion. Evidence, I rasped. Phone in my bag. The nurse rushed to retrieve it. Miraculously, despite the crash, it still glowed faintly. The detective connected it to a secure device. A red wave appeared on the screen. Good God, he muttered. She recorded it all. Through the thin hospital walls, I heard muffled voices, Noah and Vanessa, still playing their roles as grieving family. Detective Morgan leaned down, his voice low and fierce. Stay quiet. Don't let them suspect you're awake. We'll handle this. Then the door opened again. Noah entered, face drawn tight with faux sorrow. Is she? He stopped when he saw me, eyes narrowing, studying me for too long. I forced myself still, pretending the brief flicker of my eyes had been involuntary. She's fading, the nurse said quickly, stepping between us. You should go. The doctors need space. Noah's jaw clenched. Tell me the moment it's over, he said coldly, then turned and walked out. The moment the door shut, my chest heaved, fighting the urge to scream. The detective leaned in again, his hand firm on mine. We have enough to end this, Mrs. Alia. But we need the right moment. If he knows you're alive now, he'll try again. Let us set the trap. The trap. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine Noah in handcuffs. Vanessa's perfect mask cracking in a courtroom. The truth uncoiling like a serpent before the world. But I also imagined my grandchildren, Noah's innocent children. Their laughter, their confusion, their need for love. What would become of them when their parents were unmasked as monsters? The thought pierced me deeper than the glass still embedded in my skin. I closed my eyes, feeling Hassan's presence even through the wall where he lay in another room, still fighting for his life. And I whispered to myself, not as a plea but as a vow. This time, the truth will not be buried. The night inside the hospital was long, but not silent. Machines beeped, heels clicked across tile floors, voices murmured in the hall. Yet beneath all of it, a heavier rhythm pulsed, the waiting. The waiting for Noah to slip. Detective Morgan returned just before dawn, his coat still damp from the rain outside. He carried my phone in one hand, a folder in the other. It's all here, he said quietly, tapping the folder. The recording is damning. His words about Caleb, about you, about money. But we need him to incriminate himself in front of us. That way, there's no room for his lawyers to twist the story. How? I whispered. My throat still burned from the crash, but my voice carried the steel of desperation. We'll let him believe you're dying, Morgan explained. He'll try to take control, press the narrative. That's when he'll slip. People like him always do. I nodded faintly. Every muscle in my body ached, but inside, a new strength flickered to life. Hours later, Noah and Vanessa arrived, dressed in black as though already rehearsing for our funeral. Their faces were carved with the right amount of grief, their words laced with sorrow. "She was like a mother to me," Vanessa told a nurse in the corridor, her voice trembling. "I can't believe she's gone." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I kept still, eyes closed, the perfect patient hovering between life and death. The detective positioned himself nearby, pretending to review medical charts. Another officer lingered just outside the door. Noah leaned close to my bed, his breath sour with rage disguised as grief. "You should have stayed quiet, Mom," he whispered. "Why did you have to dig into the past? Caleb's gone. You should have left it there." I felt my heart hammer, but I gave no sign. Then Vanessa joined him. "It's over now," she said gently, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead as if she were a devoted daughter-in-law. "We'll tell everyone it was an accident, that you both lost control. They'll believe us." Noah exhaled harshly. "They'd better. Or else," he stopped, his eyes flicking toward the detective who appeared to be absorbed in his paperwork. Lowering his voice further, he hissed, "We can't let anyone suspect. If they find that recording, everything falls apart." There it was. The words Morgan had been waiting for. The detective's pen froze mid-stroke. He lifted his eyes, sharp as blades. "What recording, Mr. Malik?" Noah's face drained of color. He stumbled back, stammering. "And nothing. I didn't mean." The door swung open. Two officers stepped inside, their presence heavy, final. "Mr. Noah Malik, Mrs. Vanessa Malik," Detective Morgan said, his voice clear and cold. "You are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud. And for the murder of Caleb Malik 6 years ago." Vanessa gasped, her mask cracking instantly. "What? No, you can't." But Noah snapped, his composure shattering into fury. "You can't prove anything," he shouted. Morgan held up my phone. "We can. And we will." The room erupted into chaos. Vanessa pleading, Noah cursing, officers reading their rights as handcuffs clicked shut. I kept my eyes closed, body trembling not from pain this time, but from the surge of relief. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of silence lift. The truth, long buried beneath lies, was finally clawing its way into the light. But as Noah was dragged from the room, he twisted once more toward me, his eyes burning like dying coals. "This isn't over, Mom," he spat. "You'll regret this." The door slammed behind him. And in the ringing quiet that followed, I knew. The battle was not yet won. The days after Noah and Vanessa's arrest blurred into one another. Police interviews, statements, endless hours recounting memories I had tried for years to bury. Each retelling felt like reopening a wound. Detective Morgan visited often, his steady presence grounding me. "Your recording sealed it," he told me once, laying a hand on the file thick with transcripts. "But your strength, your decision to play dead, that saved your lives." Hassan recovered slowly, his body battered but his spirit unbroken. When we were finally allowed to share a room again, he held my hand and whispered, "We made it, Alia. Against him, against all of it, we made it." But there were moments when I wondered if we truly had. Because outside the hospital walls, the storm grew louder. The press called it the family betrayal trial. Headlines splashed across screens in newspapers. "Son frames brother, tries to kill parents for fortune." Photographers waited outside our home, shouting questions that cut like knives. And then there were the children. Noah's innocent little ones. Their faces haunted me. They had clung to Vanessa's skirts when she was led away in handcuffs, confused, frightened. Now, social workers carried them between foster homes, their futures uncertain. One night, unable to sleep, I whispered to Hassan, "They deserve better. They deserve love." He nodded. "Then we'll give it to them. We'll raise them, Alia." As Richard's spirit would have wanted. The trial began 6 months later. I walked into the courtroom with my arm looped through Hassan's, my heart heavy but unflinching. Noah sat at the defense table, his suit crisp, his expression empty. Vanessa beside him, pale and trembling. When it was my turn to testify, the room fell silent. I spoke of Caleb, the laughter in his eyes, the plans he never lived to see. I told them about Elise, about the theft, about the night Caleb was dragged away in chains because of lies planted in his own room. I told them about Noah's greed, his manipulation, his rage on the road the night of the crash. And finally, I told them about the voice memo on my phone, the words that condemned him. "Caleb was in my way. You're in my way. Anyone who stands between me and what I want doesn't deserve to stand at all." The jury listened, faces hard and grave. When I finished, I turned toward Noah. For a moment, I searched his face, looking for a trace of the boy I once cradled in my arms. But there was nothing. Only the hollow glare of a man who had traded his soul for envy. My son died 6 years ago, I said, my voice steady though my eyes burned with tears. What remains is not my son. It is a stranger, and I will not carry his lies anymore. The verdict came 3 days later. Guilty. Guilty of Caleb's murder. Guilty of fraud. Guilty of attempted murder of his own parents. Vanessa, too, was found guilty, an accomplice to it all. Their sentences were long, without the mercy of parole. As the gavel fell, I felt a strange stillness settle inside me. Not joy, not triumph, just release. Months later, Hassan and I stood in court again, but this time for a different reason. To request custody of Noah's children. The judge studied us carefully, then nodded. Granted. That evening, for the first time, their little voices filled our quiet house. They ran through the halls where their father had once plotted against us, their laughter washing away years of shadows. At bedtime, I tucked them in, smoothing their hair, whispering stories of their Uncle Caleb, the brother they would never know, but whose memory would guide them. As I kissed their foreheads, I looked out the window at the night sky. For the first time in years, it felt wide and open, no longer a ceiling pressing down. Hassan's arms slid around my shoulders. We're free, he murmured. And I knew he was right. Not free of scars, they would always remain. Not free of grief, that would never leave us. But free of lies. Free of Noah's shadow. Free to choose love, even after betrayal. And that freedom was everything.